I'm sorry for the hoarseness of my voice right now. I just finished an hour-long class in which I had to raise my voice quite a bit. So put up with that. Because the readings, the first and the third readings today for the second Sunday of Lent are about conversations, about listening and speaking. And there are two really great but puzzling stories. The first one, of course, is Abraham is told that he should go and sacrifice his only son. And so he takes wood. The boy carries, Isaac, carries the wood, and he's got a slaughtering knife. And he said, there's the place. And the boy says, well, what are we going to do? He said, God will provide, which is the name of the mountain. God will provide. So they go up, and he ties the boy to the altar and gets out the knife. And the boy, of course, first says, oh, where's the lamb? And just as he's about to slaughter his son, because of the invitation of God, God has another part of the conversation and says, no, Abraham, don't. And guess what? Right to the side is a ram, a lamb for the slaughter, not the only begotten son. And so God provides. God provided, and God provided. So it says that you're putting Abraham to the test. We'll talk about that. Was Abraham tested? Did God test him or prove him? Prove his faith. He is the father of faith. So that's one conversation. We'll come back to that. The second is what we call the Transfiguration, and Jesus, the only Son of God, with his three companions, the usual ones, Peter, James, and John, go up the mountain, another holy place, and there is a strange thing happening, a strange conversation. At Jesus' baptism, Jesus heard part of a conversation. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. So in another way, it's another conversation of blessing. But there's this thing called transfiguration. What does that mean? Well, it means that Jesus was there, but differently. He was in brightness. He was there. And another voice said to the apostles, this is my beloved Son, you listen to him. There's been a conversation between Jesus and Moses and Elijah, proving in Mark's gospel that Jesus is a prophet. He's with the prophets. Now here's the interesting thing. Why do they want to build tents, one for Jesus, one for Elijah, one for Moses? Because then it would be the end of the conversation. There would be permanence, stability. And so they say, it's really good for us to be here. Let's make this intimacy permanent, so we'll always have it. Now, as we know, intimacy is not to be made permanent. Any good conversation ends. And you say, okay, tomorrow, can we have the same conversation? No. That intimacy is for that moment. That sharing, that being honest. You can't repeat it. So Jesus says, I understand that you want to stabilize or permanent this. No. Let's go down the mountain, like Isaac and Abraham. We can't stay here. We have to go. But you'll talk about it when the Son of Man rises from the dead. And they're walking down, but they don't understand, what is this rising from the dead? So that the intimacy is to be lived, you see. The good conversations of our lives. We'd like to repeat them, but if you repeat intimacy, it's not intimacy. It's got to be new. Can't be stale. The relationships grow because of the newness, the experiences of intimacy, some of which are remembered. And the apostles remembered the transfiguration. And Abraham remembered that God provided for his son. But it's the going down the hill that fascinates me. That they don't know where they're going. They're going into the mobility, to the instability, to the newness of intimacy with Jesus and life. They don't know what rising from the dead means. It's just some of his talk. We don't know. Intimacy invites. This is important in our prayer. Intimacy invites a future, while intimacy also has a pull to permanence. You see, that's the problem. We want intimacy to be just like it is. Let's stay here. You know, I was thinking a transfiguration might be when the beautiful bride comes down the aisle and her future husband sees her in her beautiful presentation. She's transfigured. She's there, but she's figured in a different way. It's new. Now, she's not going to live that way, and she sees him, maybe for the first time in a tuxedo, and he's finally cleaned up and everything. He's transfigured, but not for permanence. Those clothes will be taken off. There will be new experiences. They will remember, they take pictures and films of the transfiguration time, but it's got to move on. They move down the hill, the married couple moves down the aisle, Isaac and Abraham move down the hill, because intimacy calls for a future, for a fruitfulness, for a sharing of the fruitfulness of our intimacy is not meant just for us. The intimacy of the conversation between God and Jesus and God and the apostles and God and Abraham was that Abraham would be the father of nations, that Jesus and his disciples would be the beginning of God's revelational love and the establishment of the church. So for us, what does this mean for us? We might have had transfigurational moments, good conversations, good walks, good lovemaking, good creation. We built our house, whatever. It's not meant for the moment. A good conversation is meant for my living what you helped me receive by my being changed by what you told me. You created me by my conversation. I create you by my conversation, just as God created the apostles by his conversation with them. Listen to him. There's a conversation, all conversations, all prayer. I have had really consoling prayer and just quiet prayer. It's still God's conversation with me, and meant not for me. Your prayer is not meant for you. It's an intimacy for distribution. So we rejoice, but we wish we could have really intimate prayer, really intimate conversations, really intimate experiences with life. But it's meant God will provide. Imagine this. God will provide me for you. and God will provide you for me. So that transfiguration becomes personal figuration. I am a figure created by our conversations. I have a conversation with trees, with clouds, with people, with those who have gone before me. I can have conversations with them, but their conversation is meant for my living, and my conversation with you is for your living. And the conversation at the Eucharist is meant for us to be a community for others. I'm not transfigured, I'm transposed from here to you. What a wonderful way to live.